The Italian Adrian helmet in First World War. Italy, although entering the war a year after the outbreak of the First World War, had not in the least thought, like all the belligerent nations, of designing a helmet to protect its soldiers. The need emerged from the stagnation of warfare in the trenches, where in the first year of the war in France the number of head injuries and deaths from falling rocks and material moved by artillery was extremely high. This prompted General Adrian to study a head protection for his soldiers. Until that moment the only helmets present in the various fronts were those of the French cavalry and the helmets with the nail, the Pickelhaube, Germans, legacies of the 19th century wars, which had a purely aesthetic function. Let us remember that France began its adventure in the World War, still wearing its 19th century uniform, with a blue jacket and gold buttons and red trousers. Even the fighting techniques were obsolete with the soldiers standing in front of the enemy, who without shelter, since for the French the enemy had to be faced openly and without hiding, remained lined up standing to shoot. It is no coincidence that in the first months of 1914 the French had more deaths than in the following 4 years of conflict. The first Adrian helmet made its appearance in the summer of 1915 in France and in a short time became available to all soldiers, colored in light blue with a frontal metal specialty frieze. Even in Italy, the first bloody assaults of 1915 were faced by Italian infantrymen wearing cloth caps, and only in October 1915 did the distribution of the first French-made Adrian helmets begin, still blue in color and with the front grenade, in number of 6 per company. 80% were given helmets with infantry badges, 15% with artillery badges and 5% with engineers' badges. Subsequent deliveries from France were made keeping the blue color but without the front grenade and the consequent holes, and the helmets were either light blue or directly colored gray-green. Thus was born the first true Italian helmet, namely Adrian Model 1915, composed of 4 steel pieces, shell, front visor, rear visor and crest, to protect the only air intake, assembled together by rivets and metal joint same. The padding and the chin strap were fixed directly to the shell. Here, in fact, on the frontal and temporal axis, 4 metal tabs were fixed by means of electric spot welding, which also incorporated the supports for the wimple on the temples. The tabs had the dual function of retaining 4 corrugated plates and the padding consisting of a wool band on which a leather cap was sewn that ended in wedges. However, the true Italian version of the First World War helmet is the so-called 1916 model. It was totally designed and built in Italy. It was made up of just 2 pieces, a mold that formed the visor and shell and the crest to protect the air intake, electro-welded to the mold itself. In July 1916, the Supreme Command established that the distinctive frieze of the department to which it belongs should be painted on the helmet. This is how the friezes of the departments to which they belong were applied with specific pads or painted by hand. Generally black, tarred or handmade and sometimes painted white, perhaps for use by officers. Not all applied the frieze with a pad or painted as for example the Bersaglieri Ciclisti, who applied the brass frieze of their hat directly to the helmet. The 1916 model was stylistically absolutely the same as the previous French model except that the padding was in a fragile oiled canvas, the wimple of a thinner leather and the quality of the metal was poorer. Its distribution began at the end of 1916, and Model 16 helmets were made in azure blue color, although most were gray-green. For the duration of the war, the various models previously distributed were used without distinction, although the French one was preferred because it was built with heavier steel and with more resistant padding. The Adrian helmet became an icon of the Italian army and was adopted by many countries around the world.